Well, hello and happy Monday. Welcome back to Theo Faith and welcome back to our journey this year in the Word through the book of Romans. So, as you recall, we're going through Romans through the year. We'll be finishing up in October, going one or two verses at a time, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, I'm so glad you joined us. I'd encourage you, if you have friends or family members or neighbors who you think would benefit from this, certainly invite them to join. I know there's several people who have a group that are looking at these together online and then via Zoom are discussing the book as they go through it and its applications to themselves. So God bless you for doing that, and glad you're a part of this. We are in Romans 1:18 today. Let me switch over to that so you can see the verse. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all the ungodliness and unrighteousness of people who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. At this point, we are moving from the introduction, Paul's introduction to the letter in verses 1 through 17. Just as you might recall, first, Paul talks about his who he is and his mission in the first part of that introduction. And then in the second part, he talks about his great longing and desire to be among the people in Rome in order to use his gifts for their benefit and for them to use their gifts for his benefit as well. So that was kind of the introduction there, orients the people in Rome to what Paul is about to say. We come into this verse here, Romans 1:18 through 3:21. This is the first major section of the book, and it's about sin. And you should be able to pick that up right away. Paul introduces the gospel here by talking about the wrath of God. The wrath of God is revealed. Interesting how Paul approaches this in verse 1:17. He first talks about the righteousness of God. If we scroll back up there, we see that phrase right here, the righteousness of God, and now in contrast, the wrath of God. So the righteousness of God, Paul is first holding out this righteousness by faith, through faith, and then the promise of wrath for the unrighteous. Interesting contrast here. You know, the Old Testament prophets could be found pleading really with the nation of Israel to return to the law and enjoy the security and the prosperity that was promised to them. And then they turn right around and they warn Israel of the wrath of God if they ignore his word, if they ignore his law. And that's what we see Paul doing here. First holding out the promise, then warning of the wrath. And note the relationship as you think about this and as you go through this book, the relationship between truth and those who are righteous. Let me go back up to verse 17. The truth of those who are righteous are live by faith. The righteous one will live by faith. Again, he's quoting the Old Testament here, quoting Habakkuk 2:4. We talked about that last time. So the relationship between the righteous and truth is faith. The righteous believe, they have faith, they have confidence, they have trust in the Lord. The unrighteous, however, look what they do. They suppress the truth. So the righteous have faith, the unrighteous suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Another way of saying repress or suppress would be conceal or censor or somehow contain. My favorite analogy, my favorite illustration I use is imagine you're at a pool and you're standing in the pool up in the waist deep water and you've got a great big beach ball in your hands. And you take that beach ball, which represents truth, and you submerge it in the water, and you have to hold that down. You have to struggle a little bit to suppress that truth beach ball under the water there, to hide it. And as soon as you let it go, as soon as you release it, it bursts through the water and pops up literally right in front of your face. And that's what we see here. The righteous are holding down, they're suppressing, they are keeping that truth down. You see this in people, I think, frequently. I saw it in myself before I was a believer, and perhaps you as well. Always questioning, forever questioning, objecting, bringing up exceptions. I think very often people like this are like those spoken of in 2 Timothy 3, verse 7, who are always learning, but never able to come to the truth. They're always learning, always seeking, asking questions, and their skepticism at first seems to be admirable. Their first seems to be inquisitive, but pretty soon you find out that they're always questioning. They never come to a conclusion. There's never an answer for them. And that's what we see here in Romans is continuous questioning, a continuous suppression, trying to ignore the truth. And the truth is, in fact, fighting against you in order to be seen, in order to be coming into your vision. I think in my opinion, these two verses, Romans 17 and 18, kind of sum up the theme of Romans. The righteous live from faith to faith, and the unrighteous suppress the truth. The righteous continue in faith, but the unrighteous resist it with all their might. So, as we think about application, I think there's a couple things here we need to keep in mind. One thing to be certain of, certain that God's wrath is revealed as much as the gospel, as much as God's righteousness is revealed in the gospel. Today, there's a tendency sometimes to ignore God's wrath, ignore his judgment, and just say God is love, love, love. He is going to accept everyone. He is going to, we border on, I think, sometimes universalism, the idea that in the end, God is so loving, he's going to save everybody no matter what they've done. But the reality and the gospel reality is that the wrath of God is being revealed, and we need to be certain of that. There's both wrath and grace, wrath and mercy. Be warned, so be certain that there's both love and wrath in the gospel. Also be careful or be warned not to pit love and wrath against each other. These are both attributes of God. They are both qualities of God that we need to account for and not put them in conflict with each other. His wrath is righteous wrath. His wrath is just wrath. His wrath is important as is his grace, as is his mercy. And it's important for you to remember that wrath expresses his righteousness in dealing with the ungodly. It's important to you for your salvation, your sanctification, and your glorification to make sure that you're clear on what you have been saved from, the wrath of God, and what you are been saved to, sanctification through the Spirit by the Father. So important to keep these things in mind in order to keep them balanced. And we'll see that throughout this letter to the Romans, Paul does just that. He begins in this first section up to 3:21 to talk about the disaster of God's wrath being revealed from heaven. And then he goes on to talk about the gracious salvation that God provides through the blood of his Son. God bless you, brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for continuing in the Word, and I pray that this motivates you for your own salvation, sanctification, and ultimate glorification as well. God bless you.